Lisa, your reaction to Budget 2022?
I think it's a good start. I can see that there's an effort in there to have long-term growth as part of the plan going forward, and a recognition that long-term growth is important. Now, the hard part is implementing the concepts that have been introduced in the budget yesterday to make sure that long-term growth is part of the entire package. There are some big ticket items on affordable housing. There are some other big ticket items as well. And although they don't seem to really connect with long-term growth, they can if they are done correctly. So we'll see how the implementation, it's always the devil's in the details, Larysa, and how things are executed upon.
Let's talk about some of those elements, that path to economic growth, as you had just mentioned. Critical minerals, innovation, a new agency, innovation and investment agency. Are they going to work? Are we going to get to see what we want out of that?
So the only issue that I have with setting up agencies, and I did it when I was a cabinet minister as well, is they really do take a long time to get set up, to get staffed, to understand what their mandate is, and then actually start attracting the investment that they are sought to attract. So it's a bit of a delay to put it into the hands of a new government institution to get the growth fund going, for example. That all being said, at least they're moving in the right direction. And what it is showing to foreign investors and to investors here in Canada, that Canada is serious about economic growth and they want to invest in it. They understand the issues of productivity and that they're going to be there. Critical minerals is another really good one. And the focus for them there is not only finding the deposits, which it's good to see some money in there, but as well understanding that the time to open a new mine is 13 years. If it's going to take us 13 years to uncover some of these deposits and start extracting them, then we're really going to be out of sync in terms of trying to set up supply chains for electric vehicles, batteries, and storage solutions that we're going to need in the shorter term.
Let's talk about carbon capture and that road to net zero. Were the program rollouts adequate with the, the liberal messaging?
So my understanding from what I'm hearing in private sector is it's good. It's good to see that the government took it seriously. Of course, private sector is asking for 75% tax credit, and they ended up with a 50% one, 60% for direct air capture, which is a different kind of carbon capture. This will definitely put the companies in the position where they can make decisions on investment for the long term in order to remodel their facilities with carbon capture, utilization, and storage. And that's the key for emissions reductions moving to 2030 and then again to 2050. But as well, it's the key to keep up with what's happening in the world when it comes to transitioning into a lower carbon future.
How does oil and gas fit into this equation as you see it? Of course, it's been propping us up. It's been propping up the Canadian economy for some time now, especially as of late. How does it fit into all of this?
Well, more than propping up, look, it's 25% of our GDP, and that's really incredibly important. So you have to make sure that when we talk about transitioning and green jobs, that as you reduce the amount of exports that are coming from oil and gas, as the demand around the world decreases, as what is set out by the IEA, you have to have something else that we're going to export that's going to take that place. And that's why economic growth is so important, because you rightly point out, it's a big piece of our economy. So if we're going to see a lessening of that, we need to see more of something else. The good news for me, Larysa, is I see the Prime Minister and I see the Deputy Prime Minister both saying, look, we are going to need fossil fuels. And the goal is going to be to have Canada be the cleanest source of oil and gas in the world, because we are doing the things that we must do, such as carbon capture and storage, such as developing biofuels, renewable biofuels. And I think those are really important decisions that are being made, that we're not throwing out oil and gas. It's still a very big piece of our economy. And a lot of our innovation comes from the companies who are in the oil and gas sector. So I was hopeful coming out. And I was also hopeful to see that the government has approved the Bay du Nord project, which is off the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador, extracting oil from the floor of the seabed. And that to me shows that there's an understanding that you just can't turn it all off, regardless of what the NDP may want, regardless of what some other organizations may want. It is not responsible to just suddenly decide that you're going to shut down the oil sands.
Let's talk about the deficit and balancing the budget. The government has suggested that that could happen, I guess, in about 5 years. How realistic is that? Are balanced budgets a thing of the past?
Not going to be a thing of the past. And it's the nitty gritty of it. I put it this way. The importance of those deficit numbers is that they translate into real debt and real interest payments. And interest rates are going to rise. And as they rise, so too will the amount of the government budget that has to be spent on servicing the debt on interest. And that can actually eat into a budget fairly quickly. I mean, as it stood last year, I believe servicing the debt was the third largest single output from the government, behind the departments, I think, Indigenous Services and Defense. And it's very easily to see that if interest rates creep up 1%, 2%, 3%, it's going to put the government in definitely a pickle. So that's why deficits are important. It's because you accumulate debt, you need to pay interest on the debt, and interest rates are going up. So it's a number to watch. And I think that's why the minister kept saying yesterday, we are going to be reducing our debt and deficits, and we are going to make sure that debt to GDP is on a downward slope.
What wasn't in there that you would have liked to have seen?
Wow. I would have liked to have seen an urgency, a call to the Canadian public that long-term economic growth is extremely important to our future. I know that we talk a lot about the importance of the green transition, and we talk a lot about the importance of getting healthcare right. You can't do either of those things unless you have a strong economy underpinning that the changes that are going to be needed. And I don't believe that the government has done as focused job as necessary to talk much more about economic growth and have it really in the back of the minds of every Canadian who should be asking their MPs at the door during this election season, what are you doing about economic growth? And it's more than just creating jobs. It's about this long-term vision. If you're taking oil and gas out of the equation, what is going to come in behind it? And how do we make sure that we can support all the immigration we're bringing in, all of the health services that we want to have, and all of the prosperity that we want for our kids and grandkids going forward? So I would have liked to seen a lot more of a recognition that yes, we're doing well. She said that the economy is on fire. That could just be a spark that fizzles out really quickly. We need to see a long, slow burn that really does help everybody in the ways that we want to be helped.